Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandanam Raja Janaranjanam Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitya Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Shri Radha Govardhana ki jai, Shri Krishna Bhagavan Giraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Gauranitai ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Gaur Pramanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Matsya Yuganta Samaya Manunupalabdai Kshoni Maya Nikila Jiva Nikaya Ketam Vishram Sitam Urubhaye Salila Mukame Adaya Tatra Vijahara Haveda Margan Matso Yuganta Samaye Manuma Palabda Soni Mayo Nikila Jiva Nikaya Keta Vishram sitam urubhaye salile mukan me.
Vishram sitam urubhaye salile mukan me.
Adaya tatra vijaharan havedam margan.
Adaya tatra vijaharan havedam margan.
Matsya, incarnation of the fish.
Incarnation of the fish.
Yuga Anta, at the end of the millennium. Sammaye, at the time of. Manuna, the would-be Vaibhashvata Manu. Upalabdha, seen. Kshonimaya, up to the earthly planets. Nikila, all. Jiva, living entities. Nikaya Keta, shelter for. Vishram Sitan, emanating from. Uru, great. Bhaye, out of fear. Salile, in the water. Mukhat, from the mouth. Mine. Adaya, having taken two. Tatra, there. Vijahara, enjoyed. Ha, certainly. Vedamargan, all the Vedas. Translation: at the end of the millennium, the would-be Vaibhashvata Manu of the name Satyavrata would see that the Lord in the fish incarnation is the shelter of all kinds of living entities, up to those in the earthly planets. Because of my fear of the vast water, at the end of the millennium, the Vedas came out of my Brahma's mouth, and the Lord enjoys those vast waters and protects the Vedas. Purport: during one day of Brahma there are 14 Manus, and at the end of each Manu there is a devastation up to the earthly planets. And the vast water is fearful even to Brahma. So in the beginning of the would-be Vaibhashvata Manu, such devastation would be seen by him. There would be many other incidents also, such as the killing of the famous Sankashura. This foretelling is by the past experience of Brahmaji, who knew that in that fearful, devastating scene, the Vedas would come out of his mouth. But the Lord in his fish incarnation not only would save all living entities, namely the demigods, animals, men and great sages, but would also save the Vedas. So this is a text from the scheduled incarnation in the Bhagavatam, 2nd canto. And in this chapter, Sukadeva Goswami speaks about the scheduled incarnation. So of course we know many people sometimes say that God appears, or they say, well, I am God. Quite a few people just come out straight out with the truth. Actually, I am God. And in order to verify that, there are scheduled incarnations. And the scheduled incarnations are there in the scriptures to make sure that we don't get cheated. So when someone says like that, I am God, or sometimes they subtly insinuate I am incarnation of God because they can produce some ash or do some kind of small wonders that innocent or naive people would take as, oh yeah, that person must be God. So there's two things here. One is that the person has no knowledge of what God means, because when you say to people, well, is he God or is he not God? In order to know what anything is, you have to know what the definition of that thing is. So if you say to people, is that person God? Are you God? Then whether it's a yes or a no, it doesn't mean anything unless you know what the definition of God is. So therefore Parasaramuni gives a specific definition. It's called Bhagavan. And Bhagavan means that person who possesses Van, Bhaga, all the opulences. So all the opulences means wealth, strength, wisdom, renunciation, etc. So that person who possesses all that in full, that is Krishna. There are other shorter definitions, such as everyone has a father, but that person who doesn't have a father, that is God, because he's the original being. So the scheduled incarnation, this chapter, deals with how we can see not only the activities of that Supreme Person, because that person has activities, obviously, it's not just a light. So we can see the activities of that person, but also they are scheduled, and this is the title of this chapter. And scheduled means that in advance, the Vedas, the scriptures, are telling you who that person is. Just like you, if you want to find out who your father is, let's say you never met your father, and you want to know who your father is, then the best person to ask is your mother. I know nowadays that can be a little controversial, but if you take it in the normal sense of the term, then your mother would know who your father is. So therefore, the best source of information is to go and ask your mother, "Mom, who is my father?" And she will say, "It's that one." Because no one else can tell you, not your brother, not the family, no one else can do that. So similarly, when we say who is God, then the mother, which is the Vedas, the Vedic knowledge, is the one who is able to tell us who is that person. And therefore Krishna says himself in the Bhagavad Gita that of all the Vedas I am to be known. So here in this particular chapter we have one of the incarnations that he described there, and that is Matsya. And Matsya is a fish. So we can say, God takes a form of a fish and is beautiful, and the fish is something like 12 million kilometers long. Really? How can I fit that? What's 12 million kilometers? Well, the planet Earth, just to give you an idea, is 12,000 kilometers diameter. I mean, around, if you go around, it's 12,000 kilometers. So he's 1,000 times that. That's a fish. So sometimes this is inconceivable. This is just crazy, I can't. So therefore, the scientists and the what do you call them? The researchers, whatever, they classify that as mythology. It's mythology because it doesn't fit into my little frog brain. Therefore, it must be invention. So therefore, we know the story of the frog. Who he just. He's there in a well, living on his own lonesome in a well, in the tiny little well, and his friend has come from, his frog friend has leaped all the way from the ocean. He's come here and he's met up, and he says to his well friend, "Hey, I've just come from the ocean. It's so big." And the well frog goes, "Well, it really is big." And the frog friend, the ocean frog friend comes, "Yeah, it's really big." And the other one goes, "Well, how big is it?" It's like big. So the well one goes, "Is it this big?" So he puffs himself up. "Ah, no, it's much bigger than that." And he goes, "Is it this big?" "Ah, it's much bigger than that." "It's this big." And then boom, and he blows himself up. And the mentality of the scientists and all those so-called researchers, whatever, when they talk about what God can do and they cannot do, it's like the frog in a well. They're just like, that doesn't fit into my little frog brain, so therefore I just expand myself until I make a fool of myself. Basically, I make a fool of myself. So the scheduled incarnations are important because they give us a different dimension of what God does. And if we're a little smart, which is kind of difficult to find nowadays, but we can see that when you do something, when you make a box or you make a table or you do anything, everything that you do, there's a bit of you in it. It reflects who you are. When you cook, it reflects who you are. When you draw, it reflects who you are. You know, the artist, there are particular things. So similarly, God, when he does things, it's a reflection of himself. So when God makes the material universe, then he reflects himself. So therefore there's things as geometry, like the what's called the golden mean. I'm sure you've all heard about it. And the golden mean is a particular way, like, you know, you see the Nautilus, how the Nautilus is done as a particular. So the golden mean is a type of architecture that is used, that when you build in that way, then everything is nice. Everything is pleasant. And sometimes you go into those houses or places, it just doesn't feel right. So in architecture, in art, in anything, God is present in there. But can we see it? God is also present in his, there is Antarangni Shakti, there is Bahirangi Shakti, and there is Tatata Shakti, the three main energies of God. And there's internal energy, there's external energy, and there's the living entity who is separate energy. But in all those, you can see a reflection of God. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in his Shikshashtakam, he says, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, he says, if you want to see God, then what is the first thing you do? You clean the heart. Because God is actually, we are a creation of God, but God is reflecting himself in the soul. So the soul can see itself, but God is there as well. But if there's so much garbage in the heart, it's not possible to see. So the heart is described by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a mirror. So if the mirror is dirty, when you look at the mirror, you can see that you're there, but you can't really see exactly what is there. So he recommends cleanse the mirror. So if we look at this and we think that the universe is made according to God, then we study the universe. So therefore there's Vedic Cosmology that does that. So Vedic Cosmology, what does it tell us? It tells us that the universe is a sphere. Why is it a sphere? And it's a sphere, and it looks like a Christmas tree. Like you have the middle plane, which is called the flat earth. The earth is not flat. It's just a plane where it's called Bhumandala. And then there are 7 planetary systems above that and 7 below that. So it looks like a Christmas tree with various planes like that. And then in the center, there is where Lord Brahma resides, which is mentioned here, the prime living entity. So he resides on top. And if you look at the universe, when you go on that plane, when you go out, the earth is situated somewhere there in a quarter in the middle of that. There's that trunk here, and it's situated about here. And when you go out like this, then things become more complicated. The more you go out of the center, it becomes more complicated. The more you go down, it becomes more complicated. Even when you look at the universe tells you, go inward and upward. For example, you'll have a contradiction if you go outward. The contradiction will be that we know that this universe is a small universe, therefore everything is divided in 4. Like you've got 4 ashrams, you have 4 directions, north, east, west, south. You have 4 ashrams, you've got 4 varnas. You've got so many 4s. And the Lord Brahma himself, the chief engineer, has 4 heads as well. It's a small universe, simple universe. And when you go outwards, you got 4 principles, 4 pillars of religions, things that you should do if you want to know God. What are those 4 things? You should practice celibacy, you should be truthful, you should be clean, and you should be merciful, compassion. So this is, the closer you get to the center of the universe, the closer you'll understand that those things work together. The further away you go from it, the harder it will be. For example, if you have a thief that's running to kill someone, and then you happen to be there, and the thief comes to you and says, hey, which way did they go? So which one are you going to practice here? Are you going to practice compassion and tell a lie, or are you going to tell the truth and not be compassionate? Do you understand what I'm saying? You got the choice. You got the choice, because if you want really the practice, you want to know God, you have to practice those 4 things. And they are pillars of religion. So when the thief runs and tells you, my victim is running, which way is it running? So you're going to say, oh, I'm going to tell the truth. It's running this way. But then you compromise. My question is that you're compromising either the truth or you're compromising the compassion. But my point is that you have to compromise one of them. So what the universe is telling us is that the further away you go from the center, from inward, then the more you become compromised, and the more difficult it is to reconciliate. And this is the problem in this world, is that people fight, people disagree, because they cannot reconciliate. And Krishna, God, in his incarnations, he comes because he shows us how everything can be reconciliated, but with him. So the further you go away, the less is reconciliated. So in that story, for example, of Matsya is a big fish, 12 million miles, 12 million kilometers long. So you know the story because I'm sure you've read it in the Bible as well. There was there's yugas, there's cycles, and the cycles, Lord Brahma is in charge of the whole universe. When Brahma goes to sleep, then the whole universe becomes inundated with water, and then there's a new cycle that starts again, and we know there's 4 cycles. So there's 2 appearances of Matsya. One is because there's another demon called Hayagriva. He actually stole the Vedas, and Matsya, as the incarnation, he bumped him off and got the Vedas back. Now, instead of classifying this quickly as mythology, we got to understand Krishna's mind. Krishna's mind is that he wants to preserve the Vedas. And why does he want to preserve the Vedas? Because it's what brings people closer to him. That is your mother. So you can keep your mother intact. So this is why Krishna is so interested. So he protected the Vedas from Hayagriva stealing them. And then in this particular case, Satyavrata, it was when the waters inundated. So I think in the Bible there's something similar. Is it called the Ark of Noah? Is that the same story? It sounds the same because the story of Satyavrata was that basically Satyavrata wanted to come closer to God, to Krishna, and he started performing his activities to do that. And then Krishna was pleased with him, so he wanted to reciprocate with him. And this is one of Krishna's features, that whenever you come close to him and he wants to reciprocate with you, and he will do whatever is necessary so that you are happy in the reciprocation. And this is Krishna's main business. It's Nicho Nichanam Chetano Chetanas Eko Bahuti Yo Vajatati Kamam. That there is one living entity, there's the eternal, and there's many eternal living entities. That's us. So he's the one, we are the many. And then there's Chetano, Chetanam, that he is conscious and we are conscious. So what is the difference between us and him? If he's conscious, we are conscious, and he's eternal and we're eternal. And the difference is Eko Bahodi Yo Vitateti Kamam, that he is the one that can fulfill the desires of all the others. So when you start reciprocating with Krishna, with God, at that point, then he starts fulfilling your desires in a way that is direct or indirect. Fulfilling the desires indirectly means we live in the material world, and he will fulfill the desires in an indirect way. So in this case, Satyavrata was willing to see the personality of Godhead, and just at that time it happened that it was time for devastation. Of course, the acharyas say different things. They say, well, it was not really the time for devastation at the time, but Krishna, just because he wanted to fulfill the desire of his devotee, then he made it happen. And how did he make it happen? Is that Lord Brahma, he went for a nap. So we know the length of time of Lord Brahma lives for 100 years, but we know that length of time is, it's like the length of the fish. So he fell asleep, and at that time the waters came. So then Satyavrata was given 7 days by Matsya to say, well, gather, get a boat basically, gather the herbs, gather the sages, and whatever else, one of each, one male, one female, get on the boat. And he says, don't forget Vasuki. Vasuki was used as a rope. So he used the rope to tie. When Matsya came and then he grew a horn, he put that rope around the horn, tied to the boat, and then when the waters came up, they went around until the water subsided. And then Matsya dropped off Satyavrata near Himavan, which is the Himalayas, and that's the closest to the center, because he wanted him to, of course, so he saved the Vedas. And while Matsya was pulling Satyavrata on the boat, he was teaching him the Vedas as well. So he got direct association of the Lord, and he got direct instructions from the Lord. But the point is that Krishna is always eager to bring us closer to the center, where he can reconciliate. So when we look at something like Matsya, the length of Matsya, we think it's inconceivable, we think it's mythology. But the Lord is the one who can reconciliate all the differences. And that's why we can't reconcile the differences. And therefore we fight and bicker and have differences. But Krishna is the one that managed to do that. And these particular pastimes of Krishna, which is mentioned in the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam, Matsya. So you can read about it. And if you understand Krishna's mood, then he's showing how he can reconcile the differences, and how you can see also his presence within the soul, within the universe, and of course within the internal energy. But this is supposed to be the purpose of the human being. The human being is supposed to work instead of just making an effort to eat, to sleep, and to find some kind of shelter. Then the human being, who is already taken care of by Krishna through some simple means, should dedicate his time and energy into trying to understand how Krishna works and how we can come closer to him. And by doing that, we will reconciliate all the apparent differences, because there are apparent differences. But when we come closer to Krishna, then all these differences will disappear and everything will make sense. Until then, it will be quite difficult. So therefore, it is recommended that we read the Bhagavatam, we read the Bhagavad Gita, and when we do that, we'll see really what Krishna means and what his desire is in relation to fulfilling our desire to come closer to him. Then everything will make sense. Otherwise, life does not make sense. And one of the biggest challenge we have is actually to the fact that we have a sense that we're eternal, but we're going to die. That is one of the most, it's almost like a conspiracy theory. Because you have this sense that the sense that you have that you're eternal is there because nobody wants to die. Nobody puts their hand up, shoot me. But you have a sense that you're eternal, but the controversy or the opposite is that I'm going to die. So therefore, Krishna is showing in these scheduled incarnations and throughout the Bhagavatam how you can reconciliate that. He explains that in the Bhagavad Gita very clearly. So therefore, by reading the Gita, by following the process that Krishna establishes in the Vedas, then one can reconciliate those differences and therefore become happy. Because the sense of unhappiness or the sense of fear that we get is born of the fact that we don't know. We're in ignorance. What's going to happen? What's going to happen after death? I don't know. I just kind of don't talk about it, It's like, don't be so pessimistic. Just leave it there. So Krishna reconciliates and explains to us very clearly what happens. And once it's clear, it makes sense. It's just like when you walk in a room and everything is dark and you're bound to kick your toes on the furniture. But when you turn on the light, you know where everything is and it's fine. So this is what Krishna does by showing the scheduled incarnations. And by reading that, by studying the Bhagavad Gita, then it seems like everything becomes brighter, everything becomes clearer, and it becomes obvious what we need to do and what we need not fear. Okay. Thank you very much. Any question, comments, or anything like that?
Just wondering, indicating this universe having four, everything you mentioned.
Oh yeah.
The Varnas and Ashramas, are you indicating that
four directions?
Universes have more Varnas and Ashramas?
Yeah, yeah. And there are more directions also. So it becomes more complicated. Like this universe, for example, is an early universe because everything is done according to the unit of measurement. Like if you increase the unit of measurement, it reduces what you can see, and vice versa. So that means when you use 3 feet, it's more than 1 meter, but your vision is closer. So this universe, for example, you have a particular unit of measurement that doesn't allow you to see the atomic, therefore we got blunt senses. So blunt senses doesn't allow you to see what's in the atom, but there are some universes where they can see. But because they can see the small stuff, they can't see the big picture. So this universe is built in such a way that you can't see the small things, but with the unit of measurement that we've got, you can see the bigger picture. And what the bigger picture is, that means it's God and how the universe runs. Therefore, this plane is known, this particular area in this plane is known as the plane where you can realize God and yourself. But if you go to other planes on Bhumandala, you cannot do that, because the unit of measurement is different. So you'll have 8 directions, 12 directions, 16 directions, then it becomes very difficult. Because as you can see now, we have 4 pillars of religion, but in other places of the universe, they've got more than that. So the more you have, the more difficult it becomes. So that means that you are seeing the smaller picture, but you can't see the bigger picture. Like for example, when you go to the lower planetary systems, they can do anything. I mean, they can change their bodies, they can travel out of space. Sometimes you see them traveling out there. So they're really into the small things, they're into the little detail. So that's the unit of measurement. And when you come closer to Mount Meru, like the planet Earth, where planet Earth is, then you cannot see that. That's why it says you have blunt senses, but you can perceive the whole picture. You can understand that God exists, that I am dying, or I am getting diseased, and therefore I should do something about that. So the connection with the broader picture is easier in some areas of Bhumandala, where others is so easy. And that's why universes, because within one universe there's different universes as well. As the universe is complicated, but it gets like that. Because the universe is like a node upside down. You have the 1, and then it goes 2, 3, 4, 5. It goes to Bhumandala, and then from here it goes down, and it goes down again. And this is why the universe is like this also, because Brahma sits on top, and he's the closest to the center where the Vedas are. That's why he went down the tube to get the austerity, he didn't go outside. So the closer you get to that, the more you get close to God. That's called inward and upward. So the Sankhya philosophy explains that in detail. And the Sankhya philosophy does it, that it divides everything like that. And that's why you have this 4 and 8 and 12 and 16. Actually, the whole universe can be explained through a mathematical equation. But where you take birth in the universe will have a really strong effect whether you can see the big picture or not. Like the extraterrestrials, they have zero interest in God. They're just into their machines, and they're traveling and living a long time and stuff like that, because they're worried about the details. Because their unit of measurement is different than ours. So their perception is different. And of course that comes from the soul, because that's your desire. Therefore it's very important that you live a life that you know where you're going to go in your next life. Because if you don't, you may end up anywhere where the interest in the broader picture is not there. you deal with 8, 12, 10, 16 directions instead of 4. 4 is complicated enough. And as I gave that example of the thieves and the, and the killer there, whatever it is, chasing people, then you come to a situation where it's really conflicting. And the more it's conflicting, the more difficult it is to exist. So therefore, to do that, then it's recommended that you come closer to God. Then everything becomes reconciliated. And the further away we go from God, then the more difficult it is to reconciliate our differences, whether it's social differences or whether it's personal differences. So even the universe itself indicates, it's a reflection of God, it indicates that one should be. That's why the scientists, they always go, how is the universe created? But you shouldn't ask how, you should ask why. So why is it created like that? Why is it that Brahma goes down? They should ask those questions. It's like that because Krishna with the Vedas wants you to come closer to him, because then everything makes sense. Otherwise it doesn't make sense. Otherwise you're always fighting and philosophizing. Oh yeah, I know the truth. No, I know the truth. No, I know the truth. But the Vedas are sitting within that center. And Krishna is always calling us to come to that center. So the universe is created like that. Yeah, there are other universes that have more directions, definitely. Put your hand. Go on, I'll repeat the question.
It said that the incarnations of Krishna are unlimited, like a wave is constantly coming to the beach. So in the Bhagavatam there's just a list of the main incarnations.
Yeah.
Is there other Vedic textbooks where there's talks about other incarnations that are not listed in the Bhagavatam?
Well, the question is not quite like that. The question is that what is available that we can understand? Because everything that is listed to us is in relation to our universe. So, of course, there are many incarnations, but how we can understand that, that's only in relation to where we live again. Like the moon, the moon, the scientists, the astronauts, they actually went to the moon. Hello? Yeah. They actually went to the moon, but the moon is the moon that they went to is not the moon that is described in the Bhagavatam. So what is that moon then? That moon is like a virtual representation of the real moon. Like if I talk to you on Zoom, am I talking to you? Huh? Well, I can't feel you, I can't feel the 3D, I can't smell you. Sometimes it could be a good thing. And I can't, there's certain things that I can't do, but you're there on the screen, and I can have a limited relationship with you. So similarly, the moon is like a virtual representation of the real moon. Therefore, Prabhupada says clearly they didn't go to the moon. And yes, they didn't go to the moon, the real moon. This one is only a virtual representation of that. Similarly, in regards to this is because this is what we can take with our senses. That's all we can see. And this is what it means to be conditioned. When you're conditioned, we are conditioned souls. We're not liberated souls. Conditioned souls means that you're allowed a certain amount of knowledge, and that's it. Like you have up, down, sideways, 3. That's it. But there are 4 dimensions, but you only allow 3. You can't sense the 4th one. So every bit of knowledge is given according to the person who is in a particular body, in a particular place in the universe. So if you were, for example, to go somewhere where, the incarnations of the Lord are unlimited, you would be thinking, I can't. These ones you can understand. And for a normal human being living on planet Earth, this is what Sukadeva Goswami recommends. So, like everything else, we can't. There's a lot of things we cannot understand, but yeah, there are unlimited. The fact is that sometimes we misunderstand the conception of expansion, because the universe is expanded, but sometimes there's people saying when there's a lot of fragments, you put those fragments together and you get the whole. But it's not like that. The universe is expanded through Shakti. So Shakti is the one that looks after all the universes. Prakriti is the one that looks after inside the universe. So that's what Krishna says in Bhagavatam, Prakriti Kriya Manani. So he says he's under Prakriti, but the Shakti is the one that takes care of everything. Now when you expand like this, then when you're affected by Maya, illusion, that means your condition, you cannot see certain things. So I don't know, to make it simple, if there's like, tentacles of an octopus, and then parts of it are hidden. It's all, you can't see the whole picture, you just see parts of it. So you think, oh yeah, parts here, there. But when you remove that illusory energy, then you can see everything is connected. So everything is connected to Krishna ultimately. But when you're in Maya, in illusion, you don't see that everything is connected to Krishna. You think, oh, this is different. Because you don't see the connection to the top has been hidden. So that goes for everything. That means you're a conditioned soul. I mean, I am also, sorry. We're conditioned souls. But that means you can't see the whole picture. So there are certain things that you are allowed to see and certain things you're not allowed to see or comprehend as well. And therefore when the Shastra says that there are unlimited incarnation of Krishna, then yeah, it is there. And we should take it on the basis of the scriptures. But we cannot perceive that. Basically because we're not allowed. Does that make sense? Otherwise everything is connected to Krishna.
Thank you very much for this. It's been a very enlightening class.
It's been a wild ride.
Sorry. And I was reflecting all the time that you were speaking, how you used the word reconcile. And I always like to look up meanings, and I thought it might be perfect here. Especially in regard to the point you said about how the closer you are to the center of things, the less complicated they are.
Right.
And the entanglement of the living entity in the material world is predicated on the development of entities, pretty more. And we can see in that model that you outlined, the further you get away from the center of things, the more envious the situation is, and therefore the more complicated. So I looked up reconciliation.
Okay.
And conciliation literally means the act of converting from jealousy or suspicion and gaining favor or goodwill.
Wow.
And so if you put the "re" in front of it,
Do it again.
to again become reconciled, fixed in your actual relationship.
Right, yeah. Very nice.
And it takes the appearance of the Lord and the enactment of his pastimes and the leaving behind of his instructions to create that situation of reconciliation. So conciliation is actually a form of yoga.
Right. It's another word for yoga.
Another word for yoga.
Very good.
Connection. Because it goes on, it says, a connection, conciliation is a connection, a bond, or a union. It is a making friendly, a gaining over of something, to bring together, to unite in feelings, and to make friendly.
Wow. Very good. Thank you. There is an interesting story about that, actually, how you can reconciliate things. And that's what's so interesting about Krishna, because Krishna is so intelligent that just the connection with him to be able to reconciliate everything is so ecstatic. And one who gives us a very small taste of that is Christopher Columbus. When he was sitting with his friends after discovering America, they all said, yeah, well, you did it, but actually anyone could have done it. And Christopher Columbus said, really? And he said, yeah, yeah. And then he said, well, okay, if everyone could have done it, then take that egg and make it stand on end. So everyone kind of tried, couldn't do it. So then they said, okay, then you do it. So then he took the egg and he took a spoon and he went pop and he put the eggs in it. There you go. Yeah?
Just in Africa, there's an analogy with the situation of the envy that was shown to Srila Prabhupada in the fact that he went through it.
Yeah, that's right.
And there was the argument, well, if he hadn't gone, somebody else would.
Right.
If you extend that argument all the way out, then if Krishna wasn't God, somebody else would.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that's right. And the point is basically that when you see the genius in just someone like as plain and humble as Christopher Columbus to do that, you can imagine that whatever Krishna does, when he turns up with his 12 million mile fish, Matsya, and you think, oh, well, that's crazy, that doesn't fit in my little frog mind. Instead of doing that, you say, well, this is how he reconciliates everything. And that's really amazing. So therefore, you know that as soon as you connect with Krishna, you'll be faced with amazing things. Something that is impossible, then Krishna will reconciliate, and he will do it in a way that is fun. As it says here in the Prabhu, it says, he swam to the water because he thought it was fun too. Just like he appears as a tortoise and he felt like scratching his back. He does it, but he does other things as well. So he's the only one that's able to reconciliate all the problems and the issues and the differences. So therefore there is no question that one cannot connect to that person, because it's the most fun thing. Instead of thinking that these stories are just a bunch of make-believe stories, then think differently. Think he is the person who actually is so intelligent. You can see Christopher Columbus just a little bit. You can imagine that person who is Bhagavan, he possesses all the opulences. Then he makes all the difficulties, the issues and what the differences in this world. He reconciliates everything, boom, and it appears in one form to do that. Then something else will appear in another form. And these are the incarnations of Krishna, and this is why he appears like that. And that's why it's so much fun to be in contact with Krishna, because, oh, well, I never thought about that. Well, this is really far out. Yeah. Sure.
I think it's pretty amazing that...
Hang on a second. The whole world over here.
It's pretty amazing that he can even give us intelligence from within the heart. That's a kind of miracle. That he accompanies us as a superstar, and even though we're born in complete ignorance in this material world, how come that we can see and understand these things?
Well, he said...
With intelligence is coming from him.
Yes. Well, he says that in the Bhagavad Gita. He said to Arjuna, I'll give you that knowledge because you're not envious. So as Prabhu was mentioning, that as soon as there's some kind of envy, then Krishna he pulls the curtain on the fact, on the understanding of him, because we're envious, so obviously it's not going to fit. So the process of Krishna consciousness is one who removes this curtain, this illusion, this envy, and then automatically we can appreciate, you can see Krishna, we can see what he does, exactly for the reason why he does it. Not become envious of him. Oh, how come you get to be the fish, and not me? How come you get to be God and not me? So when we remove those undesirable things, then immediately we appreciate what he does, and that's when it becomes real fun. But if we don't remove this envy, then Krishna keeps us at a distance. Otherwise, we will basically, it will get dangerous for us. So yeah, he gives us that knowledge, but that is the condition, though, that we are not envious.
But it's funny that even in the everyday, you feel that anything you know is because Krishna is letting you know.
Yeah. Sure. Rupa is here. Haribol Rupa.
So, in Goloka, we understand there's pure love for God in the form of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya, for Krishna praying, pure praying, and in the the planets, there's great respect and awe and reverence. But is there a certain type of love there as well, and all those different the planets, and is that love also pure? Because it's the spiritual world, there's no residents of all planets in the spiritual world don't have any motivation in their love with a different deity on different planets. So there's a pure love, but it's just a different type of love. There's still love there, even though there's great awe and reverence and respect.
So you're saying, is it a different love in Vaikuntha than it is in Goloka? Is that what you're asking?
That's basically saying, is there, we hear that in the Vaikuntha planets it's great, the residents have great respect and awe and reverence for the particular deity on that planet, but is it love as well?
Yes, it is definitely love. It's just a different manifestation. Like you have love for the director of the company that you work for, to some extent, you have a relationship. But then if that director of a company happens to be your father, then you get to know him a bit more. And then if the director of the company, let's say it's a lady, happens to be your wife, then you get to meet even more, and so on. So the relationship is what deepens the love, which is the same, but different manifestation of it. Nishinga Kabacha has a question there. He wants to know what time is Prasharam around here.
Not so much a question, comment on what Rupa was just asking. In every situation or in every place there is praying.
Yeah.
There's just rasa.
Right.
Just like this, I don't think, as far as I've seen Shanta rasa, I don't think there's praying there. But it's through Krishna.
Yeah.
Through his experiencing
Yeah.
praying. With the queens involved, they're experiencing praying.
Yeah.
So there's love everywhere, but pure love everywhere, which is rasa.
Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.